G'day Internet, Max right here, and it's going to get a little bit political today as opposed to staying in the crypto world, although of course everything is intertwined. Like understanding this and how what's going on in the world is so important to understanding about which investment classes are going to go up or down. So I want to talk a little bit about just a tweet I saw today, which I think we all kind of know, but just to see it in black and white was really kind of brutal. It was a tweet by Jim Rickards. He was referring to an article, but he said this: a majority of Americans, 55%, oppose the fascist tactics and beatings done by Justin Trudeau. 55%. Now, so invert that. That means 45% of people agree with that. That is absolutely terrifying. I mean, I know we kind of all know that, but it does go on a little bit further. It says 65% of Democrats support those tactics. So, yeah, no surprise there. But this is a breakdown of the most fundamental sort of unwritten contract of being a human being. Like, if you go back like 2,000 years, 3,000 years, like 5,000 years, think like Conan the Barbarian. And for millennia, it was might is right. If you're big enough and strong enough and scary enough and can intimidate other people, then you get your way. And then throughout the centuries, just was a little bit of learning, a little bit of intellectualism comes along, a little bit of philosophy comes along, and you get to this point where people are like, I get it. We're going to have agreements with people. I'm going to disagree with my spouse from time to time. I'm going to disagree with my business partners. I'm going to disagree with my friends. Right? Your friend, hey, let's go watch a movie. Yeah, great. What movie do you want to watch? Die Hard. No, I want to watch Home Alone. No. Let's fight. Do you fight to the death over that? The answer is no, you don't. There's this fundamental agreement which says, listen, before we start arguing on the topic, we have to have some rules about how we argue, how we disagree. If we agree, then what? If we still disagree after step one, then what? And you have to have that set up, because if you don't have that set up, you regress into Conan the Barbarian world, which is just might is right. I can do anything at any time. I can do anything at any time to get my way. As long as I get my way, I get there. And the fundamental component to that is respect for a fellow human being. It's like, okay, here's another human being. He disagrees with me. They want to do something else. I want to do this. We can't be both satisfied. I'm disagreeing with this person. What is it that you teach your children when hopefully that you teach your children when you're raising them? It's like, well, step one, you and a child, you want to play. It's like, well, step one, if you can persuade the other person to play the game that you want to play, then great. You can do that. You can persuade them. All right. Can you threaten to beat them up if they don't play the game you want? No. Hopefully you're not teaching your children that. Right? So step one is try and persuade them. Step two is if you can't persuade them and you just cannot agree on a game to play, then you kids have to separate and go and play your own games. Right? Because you don't have the right to use physical force, to threaten to steal their lunch money if you don't play the game that you wanted to play, to all of these things, to threaten to beat them up tomorrow, to actually beat them up today. All of these things are off the table. You're not allowed to do those things in a civilized society. And what's the reason for that? Why did we get here? It's for a very, very simple reason. If you're not there, then if you disrespect that person's parenthood, right now you're in the majority, and the whole bunch of kids want to play tag and you want to play hide and go seek, but so the kids force that kid to play tag. Well, tomorrow the next thing is there's a different argument, and now you have violated the rule the day before that you do not have to respect that person's sovereignty, that their human being status, that they have. You have to respect them as an individual. You don't get to force them to do that. And so the next day, kids can force you to do whatever it is that they want. And because that is so grotesque and so uncomfortable and such a horrible way of living, we agree that even though I really, really, really wanted to play tag, I am going to acquiesce and let you not play tag. And that means we can't play tag because it needs a certain number of people to be fun. But I would prefer to forego the game of tag than subject myself to this horrible world where basically I'm a slave to the majority, and I have to do what they do or they want me to do through threat of violence or actual violence on any given whim. We're all subject to the mob. that is so grotesque and so disgusting, we agree that we'll walk away and play different games. This is like fundamental to absolutely everything as a human being. And it's taken us millennia to get here. And now we are regressing with such speed that it is just mind-blowing. People are going back to this concept of might is right. And I say it's just with such speed, but in reality, it's been happening for decades and centuries. Try this on for size. Look at politics through this lens that I'm about to share with you right now. First of all, step one, important to understand, this isn't a lens, this is just a fact. It's important to understand that government is violence. Every time they pass a law, it's whatever, you can't park there, right? You're saying that, yes, you're gonna, or they'll fine you, right? Then they're going to come and take your money by force. And if you choose, no, I don't recognize your authority, I'm not going to pay that fine. Men with guns will come to you and throw you in a cage and confiscate your property and make you pay the fine. That is going to happen. Every single law is backed up by threat of violence. It's just the threat is so big and so large, we don't want to be an enemy of the state, that generally we all comply, so the violence is hidden. But it's very, very important to understand. Government is violence. Every time you ask government to solve a problem for you, you're inviting more violence into the world. That is just an absolute fact. That is not a lens. That's just a fact. So think of it. Think of government as an invisible gun. Every time you pass a law, it's an invisible gun behind that, threatening to throw you in a cage for violating that law. Okay, so now the lens. Think of politics in your country, my country, any country in the world. The way it works is that government has been, some party gets elected. They grab the gun of power, point it at their enemies, and force them to do whatever it is they want them to do. All right. 4 years later, people are disgusted by that behavior. They vote for the other team. The other team, they go and grab the gun and point it at their enemies. And every single 4 years, government gets a little bit bigger, which means the size of the gun is getting bigger. The amount of times it gets used is more numerous. And the violation and the grotesqueness of being forced to do something that you do not want to do becomes more and more offensive. The quality of life goes down for all of us. All right. This is what has been happening administration after administration, both sides of the aisle, decade after decade. This has been going on for a very, very, very long time. How did we get here? How did we get to where 45% of people don't understand what it means to be a decent human being? It's devastating. But by the same token, we've all been watching it unfold for decades. So we all get it. I understand if it's not surprising, but just to see it in print for me, it was just mind-blowing. And so how do you fix this? I would argue what was so incredibly brilliant about America, the American experiment, was the respect for your fellow citizen, was the understanding that the bigger government got, the more disrespected each individual felt, the more they had to do things which was against their own conscience. And so the respect for that, the idea was to keep government very, very small. Very, very, very small as can be. The government which governs least governs best. That was the philosophy of the United States. And it's what made Americans American, because people who came here believed in that concept. They wanted to get out from the boot on their neck in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in South America, you name it. That's why they came here. But people were working in the background. They took control of the education system, media, social media, you name it. And they have infiltrated this idea that might is right. And if you look at that survey, so it was 65% of Democrats believe this. You know that they agree with the heavy-handed tactics of the Trudeau government. Okay. So is it because they were really offended at honking horns in the street? Is that why they believe that this heavy-handed thing was justified? The answer is no. They just disagreed with the position of the protesters, right? The position of the protesters was they were anti-mandate. They didn't want that, and they were against that. These guys wanted mandate. So we have this disagreement, and so they're like, okay, honking horns in the street, slowing down traffic. Oh my God, hands on heads, this is barbaric. We have to just clamp down on these guys with an iron fist. Right, but if you look at like BLM protests, they're burning down cities, causing billions of dollars worth of damage, attacking people, punching people, fighting people, burning down private residences. They're doing all that. All of all of those tactics, they're perfectly acceptable because they agreed with the position. You see, there's 45% of America, and I'm sure the number's higher overseas, that believe that if you are right, if you have a good idea, you don't have to agree on how to argue before you start arguing. You're right. And there is no limit to what you can do. You can be violent, you can destroy property, you can confiscate people's livelihoods, steal their trucks, you can confiscate their life savings, you can steal their bank accounts. You can do it all. There is no limit. If you agree with them, the rules are there ain't no rules. If you disagree with them, there's still no rules. They're going to do whatever the hell they want to you because you're just wrong and vermin and you don't get the respect of being a human being. And for that number to be 45%, that is just... So how can America survive? How can the world survive? And the answer is it can't. It cannot. You can't. If you're disrespected that often, if you're in a debate with someone and you're trying to use words and they're coming over and using fists, they're using violence, what are you just going to continue sitting there chatting away while you're getting punched in the face? You have to. Their lack of respect for you, they have broken the agreement. They've broken the unwritten rule of being a human being in the 21st, 20th, and 19th century, that what you do is, before you start arguing, you agree on rules of arguing. It says, if we can't come to an agreement, we're going to agree to go our separate ways. We are not going to fight to the death at the end. But they've broken that agreement. They're going to fight. They're going to do it. They're not going to let you walk away and do something different. So you find yourself where you've been disrespected, they've broken the agreement. Either you can stand there and get punched in the face and trying to reason with them, or you have to hit back. So how is a civil war avoidable? As long as they maintain this position that they're not going to respect your personhood, then war is inevitable. Like a hot war is absolutely inevitable. And I'd love to hear your thoughts below, but is there a way out of this? Understanding that they have taken control of government, media, social media, their recruitment is just going through the roof. They are producing violent people who have no respect for your personhood. They don't care that you're a human being. You're an inconvenience to them because they want it a certain way. They want to play tag. You don't. By God, you're going to play tag. That's where their head's at. And they're righteous in wanting to play tag because everyone knows tag's the best game. And so they are justified in using violence to force you to play tag. What do you do? How do you fight back? Can you fight back? Is there a way to avoid a hot conflict? Personally, I don't see it. What does that mean for the world? Let me know in the comments below. By the way, it's an election year. I think there's going to be some more political content. Let me know. I'd love to know, what do you want me to talk more about? I could talk more about politics. I could talk more about economics. I could talk more about altcoins. I could talk more about Bitcoins. Let me know in the comments below. I'm fascinated by what it is that you guys would like to hear. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.